Imagine waking up one day and realizing your entire childhood was a lie. Your name, your family, your memories, carefully rewritten by someone who claimed to love you. Now, picture this. 19 years after you vanished without a trace, a complete stranger walks into your workplace, looks you in the eye, and says, "I know who you are, and you're not who you think you are." This is the haunting and emotional true story of Rachel Morgan, a girl forgotten by the world who refused to forget herself. And what she uncovered will leave you speechless. But before we begin, let us know in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? The rain in Spokane didn't fall. It whispered. Each droplet slid down the fogged window like a reluctant tear, blurring the glow of the neon sign outside. Timberline Diner, Est Terd 1967. Inside, the smell of old coffee, burned bacon, and lemon-scented floor wax clung to the booths like old memories. A jukebox in the corner wheezed to life, crackling out a worn vinyl rendition of Patsy Cline's "She's Got You." The song barely rose above the soft hum of fluorescent lights and the low buzz of conversation, like the diner itself was trying to forget the sound of silence. A woman sat in the third booth from the back, fingers wrapped tight around a chipped ceramic mug. She stirred the coffee slowly, mechanically, as if it helped her think. But it was clear she wasn't really there. Her name was Donna Parker, and she came to this diner every Thursday for the past 19 years. Same seat, same mug, same silence. She kept a folded newspaper beside her plate. The headline was faded from the oils of her skin. Missing Rachel Morgan, age 6, last seen at the Ridgewood Playground. The photo was of a smiling little girl in a red hoodie, holding a plush giraffe. Her eyes were wide, unafraid. Donna ran her thumb over the image again, pausing at the girl's face, just as she always did. The plush giraffe's name was Mr. Tangles. She'd sewn its ear back on the week before Rachel vanished. A clatter of silverware made her flinch. The waitress, Lucy, apologized, but Donna just nodded, eyes distant. "Still waitin'?" Lucy asked softly, trying to smile. Donna didn't answer. She didn't have to, because some silences are too loud to ignore. 19 years later, across the country, in Denver, Colorado, a girl named Rachel Morgan woke up gasping. Her sheets were tangled around her legs, soaked in sweat. The sound of a train horn echoed in the distance, faint but unmistakable. She stared at the ceiling of her tiny apartment above Willow and Birch Cafe, where she worked. The peeling paint above her bed had started to curl at the edges again, like it was trying to peel back the years. The dream always started the same. A yellow room, a man's voice humming a lullaby, a brass doorknob that wouldn't turn, and the sound of something dripping. Rachel rubbed the back of her neck. Her fingers found the familiar, almost imperceptible scar behind her right ear, something she had since she was a child. But no one had ever explained. Her adoptive mother, Donna Parker, had told her it must have come from falling off a bike when she was young, though Rachel couldn't remember ever owning a bike. There were a lot of things Rachel couldn't remember. Her childhood was a series of fragments, faces without names, places without maps, voices that echoed but never identified themselves. She'd been adopted when she was 7, according to the records. Before that, a black hole. She often wondered if she had simply chosen to forget. Outside the cafe, the morning was quiet. Too quiet for a Thursday in Denver. The cafe was always busiest around 9 a.m. But today, it was unusually empty. Just a man reading the Denver Post at the corner table and a mother quietly feeding a toddler bits of scrambled egg. Rachel wiped the counter and looked up at the sky. Overcast. Gray like metal, heavy with something unsaid. She turned to the espresso machine just as the bell above the door jingled. The man who entered wasn't anyone special, at least not at first glance. Jeans, boots, a forest green jacket. but there was something in his eyes. He didn't look around like most customers. He didn't scan the menu board or check his phone. He looked directly at her as if he already knew who she was. Rachel's smile faltered. "Hi," she said. "What can I get you?" The man didn't answer. He just stared, his eyes, grayish blue, weathered, fixed on her with a strange intensity. Finally, he whispered, "It's you." Rachel blinked. "I'm sorry." "You're Rachel. Rachel Morgan." She hesitated. "Yes." Do I know you?" He shook his head slowly, voice low, as if the words hurt. "You disappeared in 2006 from Spokane. I was there the day you vanished." The cafe went silent. Even the toddlers stopped chewing. The world seemed to narrow, like it was leaning in to hear what came next. Rachel's hand instinctively reached for the edge of the counter, her nails digging into the wood. "I think you've made a mistake," she said, but her voice was too soft, too uncertain. The man stepped forward, pulling something from his coat pocket. It was a photo, old, folded at the corners. A birthday party, balloons, a little girl in a red hoodie, a plush giraffe under her arm. And standing behind her, barely visible in the background, was a teenage boy, him. "I was your sister's boyfriend. Amy, we were 16. You were 6. You disappeared that day." Rachel stepped back. Her chest tightened. Her mind was racing. She'd never had a sister. Had she? That night she didn't sleep. She pulled out a box from the back of her closet. Inside were childhood drawings, school forms, report cards, a small teddy bear with a missing eye. Nothing before age 7, nothing before Denver, not a single photo, except one. Tucked in the corner behind a stack of postcards was a necklace, a thin chain with a rusted pendant, the letter R, not Rachel, just R. She didn't remember it, but when she held it, her hand trembled. Her heart knew something her mind didn't. Outside her window the wind began to howl, and in her dreams that night the yellow room returned, but this time the doorknob turned. Rachel Morgan liked the quiet before the city woke up. Every morning before Denver turned into a blur of honking horns and clattering crosswalks, she would stand by her kitchen window with a chipped ceramic mug and stare at the mountains in the distance. They reminded her of something, though what she couldn't say. Like a painting she had seen once but couldn't find again, her apartment was small. Lived in, cozy in the way only solitude can be, a record player sat in the corner, always spinning the same old vinyl, the mamas and the papas, because she liked the voices layered over each other like conversations she never got to have. There was a bookshelf near the door stacked more with journals than novels. She wrote often, but rarely finished anything. Most mornings she lit a lavender candle and played the record softly as she prepared to open the cafe below. Rachel had been adopted at age 7. That much was in the file. The Parker family, and just Donna by then, had taken her in after a brief stay with a foster family who never sent a birthday card. Donna had always been kind, steady, predictable, but she never hugged Rachel the way other mothers did, and Rachel never asked for more. It was hard to explain the silence between them. It wasn't cold. It wasn't cruel. It was just tired, like both women had made peace with a reality they didn't choose. At Willow and Birch Cafe, Rachel was known for her calm presence. She moved through the space like she belonged to the air around it. Her coworker, Sienna, was the opposite. Loud, bubbly, always wearing earrings that jingled when she laughed. "You're like an old book," Sienna told her once, sipping an oat milk latte. "I feel like if I opened your chest, I'd find handwritten letters and pressed flowers." Rachel had smiled, but didn't answer. Sienna always made things sound prettier than they were. What Rachel didn't say was that sometimes she felt like a book someone had ripped the first few chapters out of, and no matter how far you read, you never really understood the main character. In her spare time, Rachel visited the city library. Not for books, for people. She liked to sit in the back near the community board and watch strangers pin up their lives. Piano lessons, lost cats, babysitting offers. She imagined who they were, who they missed, who they might become. Sometimes she wondered if anyone had ever pinned a note looking for her. Once she found an old flyer, yellowed, curled at the corners, tucked behind a poster about missing pets. It read, "Missing Rachel Morgan, age 6, last seen wearing a red hoodie and blue jeans. Please call if you've seen her." It looked familiar. She couldn't explain why. She didn't tell Donna. Her relationship with Donna had shifted over the years. When Rachel was 12, she asked Donna why she never kept photos of her as a baby. Donna froze mid-sip of her tea and said, "You didn't like pictures back then. You'd cry whenever I held a camera." Rachel had accepted it. She was a quiet child. A forgettable one, maybe. At 17, she found an old photo album in the attic. It was labeled Rachel First Years. Inside were photos of birthday cakes, Halloween costumes, and Christmas trees. But none of the photos had Rachel's face. In each one, she was either turned away, blurred, or entirely absent. In one, just her hand appeared, reaching for a candle. She never brought it up again. At night, Rachel wrote in her journal, "I feel like someone is watching me, but not in a bad way, like they've been looking for a long time. Like they've been waiting for me to look back." Sometimes she drew the yellow room from her dreams. She had drawn it more than 40 times. Always the same. Yellow walls, a window with no curtain, a door with a brass knob, a faint stain on the floor, like rust or spilled paint. She had asked Donna once if she ever lived in a yellow house. Donna had shaken her head. "We always lived here, sweetie. This building was white when we moved in." But Rachel had never said the house was white. After the man came to the cafe and claimed to know her, something inside Rachel cracked open. She didn't tell Sienna about it. She didn't tell Donna either. But the next morning, she walked 3 blocks to a small antique store. Inside, she asked if they sold old yearbooks. The owner looked confused but pointed her to a stack in the back. She flipped through them without knowing what she was looking for. Until she found a photo from Ridgewood Elementary School, 2005, Class 1B. There, among the blurry rows of children, was a girl who looked just like her. Same scar behind the ear, same wide eyes, same red hoodie, but the name listed beneath the photo was Rachel Carson. That night, Rachel asked Donna the question she had always been too afraid to ask. "Do you remember where I was before?" Donna set her teacup down slowly. "Before?" "Before I came here, before the adoption. Do you know who I was?" There was a long silence. Then Donna said, "I think you were someone who needed a safe place, and I gave it to you." Rachel stared at her. "But that's not an answer." Donna didn't reply. Rachel went back to her room and pulled out the old necklace again. The letter R shimmered in the lamplight. She turned it over. For the first time, she noticed something etched on the back. A date. 06/12/06, the day she vanished, or the day she was found. It began with the music box. Rachel found it 3 days after the stranger's visit, while cleaning out the storage closet above the cafe. It was buried under a stack of old uniforms and a box labeled Seasonal Decor. The box wasn't marked with her handwriting. It didn't belong to the cafe, and no one seemed to know how it got there. She almost left it. Almost. But something about the weight of it, small, cold, deliberate, pulled at her. The box was wood, hand-carved with faded pink roses along the edges. When she turned the tiny brass crank, a lullaby spilled out. The notes were slow, haunting, and strangely familiar. She didn't know the song, but her body did. She dropped it when the melody reached the 3rd line, and it landed with a hollow thud on the wooden floor. Inside was a folded piece of paper, yellowed, brittle. It read, "For Rachel, Happy 6th birthday. Love, Amy. The next day, Rachel called in sick. She took the music box and the note and walked 2 miles to the public library, where she spent hours searching for missing person cases from Spokane in 2006. It didn't take long. There it was, right on the front page of the Spokane Chronicle, June the 13th, 2006. Local girl disappears from Ridgewood Park, Rachel Carson, 6, last seen wearing red hoodie. She clicked the article open. Amy Carson, 12, reported her younger sister missing after briefly leaving her side to get ice cream. Witnesses described a maroon van seen circling the area earlier that day. The mother, Margaret Carson, issued a tearful plea to the public. "Please bring my baby home." A plush giraffe toy was found near the slide. No other physical evidence was recovered. Rachel stared at the screen. Her hands trembled. She recognized the giraffe. That night, Rachel confronted Donna. She didn't yell. She didn't cry. She just placed the music box and the newspaper clipping on the kitchen table and asked, "Did you know I was Rachel Carson?" Donna's eyes widened. Then something shattered behind them. She sat down slowly, like her body couldn't hold itself up anymore. "I wasn't supposed to know," Donna whispered. "They told me you were a ward of the state, no known relatives. I didn't ask questions. I wanted to be a mother again." "Again?" Rachel asked, voice cracking. Donna reached for a drawer and pulled out a photo. A baby boy, no more than a year old. "My son, Mark. He died before you came." Silence. Then Rachel said, "You knew my name wasn't Morgan." Donna's lips trembled. "I didn't want to lose you." Rachel couldn't sleep. She sat in bed clutching the music box, playing the song over and over. The melody dug under her skin like a splinter. Somewhere deep inside, a door creaked open. She saw flashes. A red balloon. A carousel spinning. Amy holding her hand. A man in a hat saying, "Don't cry now. It's just for a little while." She bolted upright, gasping. The next morning, Rachel went to the address listed in one of the old articles. 1437 Elm Street, Spokane, WA. It was a modest blue house with a cracked walkway and peeling paint. A for sale sign sat crooked in the yard. The mailbox still read, "Carson." She didn't go to the door. Instead, she walked around the side, past the rusted gate, and toward the backyard. There was a swing set, old, covered in vines. A single yellow swing hung limp in the breeze. At its base was something partially buried, just a glint of metal. She knelt down, brushed away the dirt, and uncovered a small bracelet. Tiny silver beads, a dangling letter A. Amy. Rachel took the bracelet to a pawn shop and asked if it had ever been sold or registered. The man shook his head. "Looks handmade, probably custom." She left feeling more confused than before. But her instincts told her she was close. She returned to the cafe to find a man waiting for her, the same man who had identified her before. His name was Matthew Blake. "I think you need to hear the truth," he said. Rachel locked the door behind them. Matthew told her everything. He dated Amy Carson in high school. He was there the day Rachel disappeared. He remembered Rachel crying, holding her giraffe, and asking where Amy went. Amy told her to wait by the swings. She was gone maybe 10 minutes. When she returned, Rachel was gone. But Matthew said something Amy never told the police. "Amy said she saw you get into a car, a maroon van. She said you weren't crying. She said you looked calm, like you knew the person." Rachel felt her throat tighten. "She begged me not to tell anyone," Matthew continued. "She said it would ruin her family, that her mom would never forgive her." "Why are you telling me now?" Rachel asked. Matthew looked at her with guilt in his eyes. "Because Amy died 2 years ago. Car accident. But before she died, she told me a secret." Rachel stared. "What secret?" Matthew hesitated. "She said she knew who took you." Rachel couldn't breathe. Matthew reached into his coat pocket and handed her a small box. Inside was a cassette tape labeled, "Rachel, don't listen unless she comes back." She recorded it a week before the crash. I've never listened to it. I didn't want to until now. Rachel didn't own a cassette player, but Donna did. That night, Rachel went back to the house and asked Donna to help her play the tape. Donna, pale and silent, nodded and pulled out an old radio from the closet. They sat on the couch together, the music box between them, as the tape began to play. Amy's voice was shaky, recorded in a rush. "Rachel, if you're hearing this, then you found your way back. I'm sorry I lied. I was 12. I didn't know what to do. The man who took you wasn't a stranger. He was someone we knew, someone Mom trusted. He came to the park all the time. He brought us candy, told us stories. That day he told me he needed help lifting something into his truck. I went. I left you alone. When I came back, you were gone." Pause. "But I saw his truck driving away. I memorized the plate. I told Mom. She told me to forget it. She said we couldn't accuse him, that we'd ruin his life. But I think she knew. I think she always knew." The tape clicked off. Rachel looked at Donna, her heart pounding. Donna looked away. "I need to find out who he was," Rachel said. Donna stood slowly and walked to a drawer. She pulled out an old folder and handed it to Rachel. Inside were papers, photos, a man's name, Gerald Winthrop. "Your mother trusted him," Donna whispered. "They worked together at the Ridgewood Library. He used to bring you girls' toys." Rachel stared at the photo. The man had cold eyes. She remembered those eyes from the yellow room. The next day, Rachel drove to Spokane again, to the Ridgewood Library. It had changed, modernized, but the staff still had old records in the archives. Gerald Winthrop had resigned in 2007, a year after Rachel vanished. No explanation, no charges. He had relocated to Oregon. Rachel took note of the address. But before she could leave town, something pulled her back to 1437 Elm Street. She parked down the street and waited until sunset. Then she climbed over the backyard fence. She went to the old shed behind the house, the one boarded up with rusted nails. It creaked open with a push. Inside was dust, mold, forgotten boxes. But in the far corner, beneath a tarp, she found a small wooden crate. Inside, a red hoodie, a plush giraffe, a photograph of two girls holding hands, and a blood-stained hair ribbon. Rachel fell to her knees. She called Matthew. He met her at the house an hour later. Together they called the police. The evidence was bagged. The shed was sealed. An investigation reopened. And for the first time in 19 years, the word hope meant something real. But that night, Rachel returned home to find her apartment door unlocked. Her journals were gone, and on her kitchen table was a new cassette. No label, just a sticky note. "You don't want to remember everything?" Rachel hadn't cried in years, not when she failed classes, not when she lost jobs. Not when she woke from dreams that made her heart race and her hands shake. But she cried now, silent, hard tears, sitting on her kitchen floor, holding the cassette tape with no label, no instructions, just that haunting message, "You don't want to remember everything." The tape sat in her palm like a threat, like a choice. But she already knew what she'd do. She drove to Donna's house again, and this time she didn't knock. Donna was still awake. She didn't look surprised when Rachel entered. Just tired, like a woman who had run out of places to hide. "I need the recorder," Rachel said. Donna nodded and disappeared into the hallway. When she returned, she handed over the same battered cassette player, her fingers trembling. "You're not ready for what's on it," she whispered. Rachel looked at her. "I'm already inside it." The tape clicked to life. A man's voice this time, measured, calm, clinical. "Rachel, if you're hearing this, then what I feared most has happened. Your memories are returning. Rachel froze. You don't know me, but I know you. I was hired to help you forget, to reframe what happened to you as a dream, a fog. I was part of a program. Your mother approved it. Amy disagreed. That's why she left. That's why they silenced her. And me. Rachel pressed pause. What is this? She asked aloud. But no one answered. She pressed play again. You were kept in a house on Hollow Creek Road, near the old lumber yard. There are photos hidden in the crawl space, documents, evidence. If you want the truth, that's where it begins. But I warn you, not all cages are made of bars. Some are made of memory. Click. Rachel couldn't sleep, so she didn't try. She drove 5 hours straight to Spokane, parked near the lumber yard, found Hollow Creek Road, a desolate, overgrown stretch of cracked pavement, lined with tall pines that groaned in the wind. She found the house easily. It looked abandoned, windows boarded, roof sagging. No signs of life, but the number on the mailbox matched the address whispered on the tape. She circled to the back. The door was ajar. It smelled like mildew and rust. The air was thick, cold. The inside was worse than she imagined. Furniture draped in sheets, dust everywhere, and something more, something metallic, lingering under the rot. She found the crawl space behind the hallway closet. It took an hour to pry the panel loose. Inside, wrapped in plastic and buried under layers of insulation, she found a photo album labeled Rachel Sessions, medical documents, a child's drawing, stick figures inside a yellow room, one with X's for eyes, a recorder with a broken microphone, and a small red shoe. Her hand shook as she picked up the shoe. It matched the one she was wearing in the photo from the missing poster. Matthew met her at a diner an hour later. He brought food she didn't eat. I think they tried to erase me, Rachel said, voice hollow. Matthew looked at the album. The photos inside were worse than anything he expected. Rachel, sitting in a room with padded walls, her face blank, electrodes taped to her temples, a man in a lab coat writing notes. One photo had a date, Aug 17, 2007, over a year after she disappeared. They kept me, Rachel whispered. Not just him, a group, a program. Matthew leaned forward. Rachel, who was your real mother? Rachel didn't know. She had never questioned it, until now. Back in Denver, she confronted Donna again. I need the truth, all of it. Donna sat in silence for a long time. Then she got up, walked to the basement, and returned with a folder. It was labeled Confidential, Morgan Rachel C. Inside, birth certificate with the name Rachel Catherine Carson Hospital. Records from Spokane General Court, documents for emergency guardianship. A letter from Margaret Carson requesting that custody be transferred, handwritten, dated 2007. Rachel's fingers tightened. She gave me away? Donna nodded. She was unstable. She didn't want the investigation to continue. Said too many people were asking questions. She wanted you safe, hidden, gone. Rachel felt like the air had been punched out of her lungs. She signed me away like I was furniture, Donna whispered. She thought she was protecting you. Rachel shook her head. No. She was protecting herself. Matthew did more digging. He found records of the Winthrop Institute, a private facility outside Salem, Oregon, shut down in 2011, accused of unauthorized psychological experiments, mostly with children labeled as emotionally reactive. One of the listed directors, Gerald Winthrop. Matthew and Rachel drove there 2 days later. The building was gone, bulldozed. But local archives had something more valuable, interview transcripts from a whistleblower named Dr. Alan Kessler. Rachel read every page. One excerpt made her stomach turn. Subject R.C. was kept in isolation wing. B. Reports of night terrors, memory fragmentation, regression. Procedures included audio reframing, identity scrambling, symbolic object anchoring. She was given false memories, new names, new birthdays. In one session, she kept asking for Amy and holding a red giraffe toy. Rachel dropped the paper. She couldn't breathe. On the drive home, Rachel stared out the window in silence. "Do you believe me now?" she asked Matthew. "I always did," he said. She turned to him. "Then help me finish this." They returned to Spokane once more. This time they found Margaret Carson. She lived in a care facility, early onset dementia. Nurses said she didn't talk much. Rachel entered the room slowly. Her mother was staring out the window, humming softly. Rachel froze. The song was the lullaby from the music box. Rachel sat down beside her. "Mom?" Margaret blinked, looked at her, and smiled. "You came back," she said, tears welling up. Rachel felt her heart crack. "Why did you give me away?" Margaret looked down. "I couldn't protect you from them, but Donna could. I begged them to let you live a normal life. To let you forget." Rachel touched her mother's hand. "I didn't forget." Margaret looked into her eyes. "I'm sorry." And for the first time, Rachel saw not a coward, but a broken woman who made a desperate choice. As they left the facility, Rachel felt lighter. But as they walked to the car, Matthew froze. Someone was standing by the driver's door, a man in a gray coat. When he turned, Rachel's blood ran cold. She didn't know his name, but she knew his eyes. From the yellow room. The man didn't speak. He just looked at Rachel like someone waking up from a long dream. His gray coat was buttoned to the top, his hair thinner now, but those cold, analytical eyes hadn't changed. They pierced through her like they had done 19 years ago, when he was the only face she saw in the yellow room. Rachel stepped back. Matthew moved between them. "What do you want?" Matthew said. The man tilted his head. "To finish what I started." Rachel's heart slammed against her ribs. "You're Gerald Winthrop." He smiled slightly. "No, that was the name they gave me when I was useful. Now, I'm just someone cleaning up old files." Matthew reached for his phone. The man didn't flinch. "I'd advise against calling anyone," he said calmly. "Unless you want her gone again." Rachel's breath caught. "What do you mean?" "You weren't the only one, Rachel," he said. "There were others, subjects like you, and not all of them survived the transition. You were a success. I was kidnapped. You were selected." The police arrived 18 minutes later. Gerald was gone. No witnesses, no camera footage, only tire marks near the curb, leading nowhere. Matthew filed a report. Rachel gave a statement. None of it mattered. The police treated them like conspiracy theorists with matching delusions. No criminal records, no warrant, no current identity, just a name from a defunct institution no one wanted to touch. Rachel felt like she was unraveling. Until she remembered the letter from Amy, the one she found behind the panel inside Donna's closet when she was 16. Back then she thought it was a poem, but now she read it again and noticed the pattern. Each first letter of each line spelled something. "Check the lockbox, 22nd Street, Unit 9B. She showed it to Matthew. They drove to the old storage facility in the industrial district. It had been closed for over a decade, but the units were still intact. They broke the lock on 9B. Inside, a suitcase, a shoebox, and a fireproof envelope with Rachel's name on it. The suitcase held children's clothes, the same red hoodie, a journal written in a child's hand, pages full of drawings of the yellow room, of a man with hollow eyes, of a door that never opened. The shoebox contained cassette tapes, dozens of them, labeled with codes, RC017, RC018, RC019, all dated between 2006 and 2008. Rachel's hands trembled. She put one into the old cassette player. The voice was hers, a small, tired version of herself. "I don't like the yellow room. I want Amy. Please, let me out." Pause, then a man's voice. "Winthrop. We're making progress. The fear response is reducing. The association with Amy remained strong. Recommended another cycle before implanting new identity schema. Rachel dropped the player. The envelope held only one thing, a birth certificate. Not Rachel Carson. Rachel Catherine Winthrop, daughter of Gerald Winthrop and Margaret Carson. Her hands went numb. She wasn't kidnapped, she was hidden. Margaret Carson hadn't given her away. She had taken her away from her own father to protect her. Donna didn't adopt a stranger. She hid a girl from a dangerous man, a man who had once been her husband. Rachel collapsed to her knees. Everything she knew, her identity, her trauma, her memories, had been manipulated from birth. She wasn't just a victim. She was the evidence. They took everything to the police, again. This time, they listened, sort of. A detective named Elena Briggs reopened the Winthrop Institute files. She had a daughter once, gone too soon. Something about Rachel's eyes made her believe. She filed an inquiry into Project Echo, the name stamped on several of the cassette tapes. 2 days later, Briggs was found unconscious in her home. Carbon monoxide leak. No foul play suspected. But Rachel knew better. Matthew disappeared the next day. No calls, no notes. His apartment was empty. Only one thing remained on his kitchen table, Rachel's music box, the crank still spinning. She was alone again, but not helpless. She knew where to go. She returned to Hollow Creek Road, to the house, alone. She went into the basement, flashlight in hand. She found the second crawl space behind the water heater, inside, a VHS tape and a note. "This is who you were. Decide who you want to be." She took the tape to an old repair shop that still transferred analog to digital. It took hours. But when it finished, she watched. It was a home video. A man, Winthrop, recording. "Rachel, look at the camera." A toddler version of herself, barely 3 years old, danced in a yellow room, laughing, innocent. Then the footage cut. Same room, lights flickering, Rachel crying. A voice off-screen yelling, "No more crying. We're almost done." The camera fell sideways. Screams. The video ended in static. She stared at the screen long after it went black and whispered, "I'm still here." She mailed a copy of the tape to every news outlet in the state. Only one replied. A journalist named Carla Mendez. Her brother vanished in 2003. Same town, same age, same profile. She wanted answers too. Together, they began connecting names. 4 other children, same signs, same blank spaces in their lives. It wasn't just Rachel. It had never been just Rachel. The final email Rachel received that night was from an address with no name. It read, "You're not safe. He's inside the system. He knows what you found. Run." Rachel packed a bag, cash, tapes, the VHS drive, a photo of Amy. She left Donna a letter. She didn't say goodbye. She didn't know when or if she'd return. She stepped into the night and vanished again, but this time by choice. Rachel didn't run far, just far enough to disappear. She found shelter in a small cabin outside Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, a remote town near the lake where tourists came and went, but no one stayed long enough to remember faces. It was the kind of place where secrets could rest, at least for a while. She changed her hair, burned the old hoodie, replaced her name with a new one, Kate Dwyer, bought second-hand clothes, paid for everything in cash and never used the internet twice from the same connection. But she couldn't sleep, not really, because some truths follow you even in the dark. She stayed in touch with only one person, Carla Mendez, the journalist. They spoke in code, used burner phones, met only in public places, always with eyes scanning the corners. Carla was digging hard. She'd uncovered a classified memo connecting the Winthrop Institute to a government-backed behavioral study, Project Echo. She also found proof that Gerald Winthrop hadn't died in 2011 as the records claimed. He had simply changed his name again. New identity, new job, still connected to tech contracts within federal systems, still dangerous. Meanwhile, Rachel received a letter. No return address. Inside, a photo of Matthew Blake, alive, bruised, hands tied, sitting in a chair in what looked like a storage room. In the corner, a clock. 6:47 p.m., written on the back, "Come alone, 47 hours." Rachel knew it was a trap, but she also knew she couldn't ignore it. Matthew had given up everything for her. His job, his safety, his past. He didn't deserve to be part of this. She contacted Carla one last time. "If anything happens to me, release everything," Rachel told her. Carla nodded. "Already prepared, but don't die, okay?" Rachel forced a smile, not planning to. She followed the clues on the photo. A clock manufactured only for hospital supply rooms, a sticker from Red Valley Medical, an abandoned facility outside Spokane, shut down in 2015 due to structural damage. She broke in through the side, flashlight in hand, heart in her throat. Every hallway felt like a memory she didn't own. Until she found the room. Matthew was there, alive, barely conscious, tied to a chair, eyes swollen shut, whispering her name. She moved fast, knife in hand, cutting the restraints, when the voice echoed from the shadows. "I warned you not to remember." Gerald stepped into the light, older now, slower. But those eyes still cut through her. Rachel stood tall. "I know who I am now." He smiled. "You know what I let you remember?" A struggle followed. Rachel was quick, furious. But Gerald had a syringe in hand, the same kind they used during the reframing sessions. She knocked it away. They fought, bodies colliding with metal glass memory. Finally, she slammed him into the wall. His head struck a pipe. He fell, not dead, but bleeding. She stood over him, panting. "You created a monster," she whispered, "and I buried her." She dragged Matthew out, called Carla from a payphone. The story went public within hours. Everything unraveled. News networks exploded with footage, documents, testimonies. Winthrop was arrested in his hospital bed. Project Echo was exposed. Other victims came forward. And Rachel Morgan, the name she reclaimed, became a symbol of truth, of pain, of survival. But not everything was clean. Donna Parker passed away quietly 2 weeks later. A stroke. She left behind a letter. "You were never mine, but I loved you like you were. Forgive me for the silence. I didn't know how to speak through shame." Rachel cried for hours. She buried Donna beside her son, Mark, left a single rose, and whispered, "Thank you for hiding me." Margaret Carson died shortly after. Complications from dementia. Rachel attended the funeral in silence. Wore black. Stood in the back. Didn't speak. But when the casket was lowered, she placed the old music box on top, cranked it once. The lullaby played, and stopped. Matthew recovered. Moved to Portland. Still called sometimes. "I'm staying off the grid," he said. "But I'm here if you ever need me." Rachel always replied the same. "I'm learning to need myself first." Carla published a book, The Girl in the Yellow Room, dedicated it to Rachel, Amy, and the unnamed survivors. It became a bestseller. People asked if Rachel would speak publicly. She never did, but she watched, from the crowd, always from the back. 1 year later, Rachel stood on a cliff overlooking the lake. In her hand, the last cassette tape, one she had kept but never played. It was labeled simply, "Amy, Final Session." She almost tossed it. Almost. But she didn't. She pressed play. Amy's voice crackled through. "Rachel, if you ever hear this, it means I failed to keep you safe. I'm sorry. But I hope you found your way, and I hope you remember what I told you. You are more than what they did to you. You are more than the pain they gave you. You are still mine, and you are still light." Rachel's knees gave out. She fell to the ground and wept. For the first time in her life, not because she was broken, but because she was healing 1 year later. Rachel Morgan returned to Spokane for the last time. The city hadn't changed much. Still quiet in the mornings, still smelled of wet pavement and pine trees. But to her, everything was different, as if the streets themselves had exhaled a secret they'd been holding for 2 decades. She walked down Elm Street with slow, deliberate steps. She passed the old Carson house, now empty, windows boarded, the lawn overgrown. No one had lived there since Margaret passed, but the mailbox still had the name, Carson. She paused, touched the rusted metal, and moved on. Her final stop was the Timberline Diner. She hadn't been there since the very beginning, since the day the story began to unravel. Since Donna sat alone with a mug and a folded newspaper, she entered and sat at the exact same booth. Third from the back. The seat cracked slightly as she slid in. She placed a small box on the table, the last item she had left, a photo of her and Amy. 2 sisters, hands painted with ice cream, laughing, one alive, one gone. The waitress came by, not Lucy anymore, but someone younger. "Coffee?" Rachel smiled. "Yes, please. Black." As the girl walked away, Rachel looked out of the window. The rain had returned, just like before. In her bag she carried a journal, a new one. Inside were notes, letters she'd written but never sent, pages of questions, of memories. The first page said only, "I am not what was done to me. I am what I choose to become." She stared at the sentence, let it settle in her chest like truth. She had spent years chasing answers, thinking they would heal her. But what healed her was something else entirely, the choice to live anyway. She walked through the city for hours afterward, past the park where she was last seen, past the elementary school where her name once lived beneath a class photo. She reached Ridgewood Playground just as the sky began to clear. The slide was still there, faded red plastic. She sat on the swing, gently rocking, closed her eyes, and listened. No voices, no yellow rooms, just birds, and the wind, and the sound of her own breathing. Later that evening, she visited Amy's grave. Carved in the stone were the words Rachel chose: Amy Carson, Big Sister, Protector, Truth Teller, 1994, 2020. She knelt, tracing the letters with her fingers. "I found her, Amy," she whispered. "I found myself." She placed a small giraffe keychain on the grave, the same one Amy gave her on her 5th birthday. Then she stood, stepped back, and said the words she'd held for so long: "Thank you for not giving up on me. I won't waste what you gave." Her final night in Spokane, Rachel stayed at a small inn by the lake. She lit a candle, sat by the window, opened her journal one last time, and began writing. Not a report, not a memory, but a story. Her story. It began like this. The rain in Spokane didn't fall. It whispered. Rachel Morgan would never be the same, and she was finally okay with that. The world hadn't apologized for what it did to her, but she had stopped waiting for it to. She had survived a past designed to erase her. And in doing so, she became something stronger than memory. She became real. The next morning, she left the journal on the bedside table of the inn. Inside the back cover, she wrote, "For the next girl who forgets her name, you are not lost. You are only waiting to be found." She walked out with nothing but her coat, disappeared into the fog. And this time, she wasn't running. She was returning to herself,